Welcome back, campers, to my Expedition Camper Build-Out video series. Today I get this camper pass-through installed, talk about some caulk gun blowouts and sealant adhesives, but ultimately get this thing done and talk about my next steps, which is really cool. These are what used to hold the, the stock jack up, or stock jack arm, which do me no good anymore because I don't have the stock jack, and they're just going to be a thermal transfer point into the cab here from the outside, because the outside is just right underneath there. So I'm just taking these off, and that way I can really get some good insulation down flush on here. I'll smooth it off with the file and touch it up with some, there's 3 of these points, with some zinc paint and then some good insulation on there. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm cleaning up the surface here. I've already filed down these edges, so they're pretty smooth, but I'm now cleaning up all this dirt and stuff that build up from my simple drive home after picking it up, and so that I can get some good rust preventative coating down on this metal. And also for my adhesive sealant that is going to go on the outside here to hold down fiberglass frame to the metal. It's going to seal it to it. So I get to get this nice and clean, so the surface will really hold that sealant, and I'm not going to have any potential for things to create any rust over time. That way it's nice and sealed up. I've already have the edges here covered in zinc primer paint to make sure I've got all those rough edges that I've already cut and also filed down, that they're covered over with a that paint to prevent any rusting. And I've done that also, of course, throughout the interior here. And I'm a little... And now for adhering the fiberglass pass-through to the back of the metal wall and sealing it up. Different sealants here that I have out, and different I have the spec sheets for each one of these. And so what I've been doing is going through and reading them all, and I've chosen to go with this one here for adhering on this back wall, and partly for a few reasons. One is it's incredibly strong. It has a 500 psi tensile strength. It still is pretty soft, which means it's got an ability of elongation, 700%, which is kind of amazing. So it's going to deal with the different thermal and expansion, contraction of the metal versus the fiberglass. It also specifically says that it does also do metal to composites and even metal to fiberglass, which is what I'm dealing with here. So there's a few other reasons why I chose it after reading all the spec sheets of the different adhesive sealants that I have. This is not just sealant, they're adhesive sealants. So I'm going to use some of these for different purposes in different places for different things, but they're all really quite good. They're all excellent. But that's how I went ahead and decided on which one to go with. I just kind of chose what I think is going to be the best by far for what I'm doing here. Specifically made for really mounting fiberglass to metal, which is what I'm doing, and making it completely waterproof and incredibly strong. So this is the one. The pass-through itself went in pretty well and got sealed up and adhered easily, but... Alright, what am I supposed to do here? This keeps happening. This is my caulking gun, this Ryobi caulking gun, and this keeps happening where it is blowing out the cartridges here, and I have it on a low setting. I've punctured many holes in the tube here, and yet I keep getting these blowouts, and I don't know what to do. I've already said I already returned one yesterday. This is a replacement. I can't seem to find any others because, of course, of lack of supply. What am I supposed to do? Just keep returning these after I use them a couple of times because they just keep blowing out the cartridges? It's getting very frustrating trying to get this caulking done simply for this pass-through. And that's it. And just trying to do this right now is a lot to go. So I think I'm going to have to go to another brand. I think I'm going to try to DeWalt. It gets highly reviewed. Oh boy, so here we go. So, trials and tribulations. Okay, so I have the initial pass-through frame complete. It's all sealed up all the way around, and I've done several layers of adhesive sealant and as well as sealant over the adhesive sealant. So it is strong, it is all attached. This thing is if I move this, it pretty much just rocks the actual truck. I can see it actually moving. So yes, it's strong, it's attached, it's sealed on there. These bolts that I bolted through, drilled through the sheet metal with these stainless bolts, and then also a galvanized sealing washer with a rubber gasketed washer on the other end. They actually seal up. You have to actually really force the bolt through them. That's how well they seal. They're meant to keep out water and air. And so they seal on the outside here just to make sure, even though they are drilled through the sealant, the adhesive while it was still curing, so within the initial 20 minutes or so of application. So the sealant is all wrapped around those bolts anyways. They push through the other side. They then have a washer and a bolt on the other side. The washer on the other side is also a small sealing cushioning washer to spread out that load across the sheet metal just a little bit, also to make sure it's sealed on the other side as well. Anyways, on the upper ones, I also put a little bit of sealant around the upper part of those washers there just to make sure no water can get in. And I still have some plans that I'll share more later about my roof box that's going to be a custom built roof box that's going to overhang this. That's going to provide some weather protection, and also the rest of this pass-through, and I have planned for that, which is going to be pretty neat if I can pull it off with a set of double doors in the seals that still allow this cab to pull forward. So there's a lot of work that's going to go in to make that happen. Right now what I got to do is I got to get this truck ready to drive again. I got to wrap up today mounting the air conditioning condenser coil. I've got it hanging right now. I need to brace it on the other two ends. I need to finish running my air lines, which I'm waiting for a few parts to come from those, so my air connections I'll have on each side, front and back, and between the two tanks and the air compressor for connections. I'll need to run my gray water hoses that connect ultimately my three smaller gray water tanks, which make one bigger tank, and I'll connect all those together, as well as get it already kind of pre-set up for my shower to drain into that, and also run my electrical wire for my tank sensor on my gray water tank. And I've got to adjust a couple of fittings on the fuel hose because the check engine light unfortunately has been off since I picked this thing up from EarthCruiser. The check engine light came on upon picking it up from them and stayed on the whole way home. They claimed the fuel cap is has probably loose, and what's caused it. It was very tight there. They made sure it was tight because this has evidently been an issue for them. I checked it and filled it up, made sure it was tight after I filled it up multiple times. It goes, all the click, click, click. I think there's something else going on, but nonetheless, I'm going to have to work on that. What's going to happen today is pretty exciting. What's going to happen today is the camper box floor is going to get mounted to the subframe to the truck. So back here at the truck, and I am installing the Snorkel, the factory Snorkel. One of the reasons why I like this truck. I didn't buy it just because it's a factory Snorkel, but that's a very nice feature. So factory Snorkel connects in here to the airbox, and I have it taped over right now because I've been doing some work on this whole pass-through and didn't want any shavings and stuff to get trapped down there in the airbox and have to go and clean those out. Now that the pass-through's on, I've got the mount remounted onto here for the lower mount on the Snorkel. I had to go and replace the factory bolts with some slightly longer bolts. I went ahead and also repainted up upper bracket, just touched it up. I'm going to go ahead and mount that up there to the upper mount, and I'm going to get this Snorkel on. Alright, so here she is. This is the new Snorkel right here. Or I shouldn't say the new Snorkel, this is the factory Snorkel. So it's back on. And that seems like no big deal. It's easy to put on. It's just a few bolts, but I'm really happy about it. Here's why I'm happy about it, because putting on this pass-through frame here, I wasn't entirely sure it was all going to fit perfectly, and of course it just fits. It fits so well that I was able to get the factory all bracket and stuff back in there. The mount's all back on the top and the bottom. The inside one here has got a friction fit right up against this pass-through, and then of course a friction fit right over the bottom here on the air filter housing. So that's great. So now the truck is drivable once again, other than the fact I have a very open rear window, and so it's rainy and windy and going to be a little snowy outside of my drive down to a friend's house that are going to help me put on the floor of this camper box and get this thing mounted. So I'm going to figure out fill that in. Any suggestions? We'll see what happens. It's going to be a chilly drive.